Hi, Ron. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, James, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, likewise. I'm excited for this conversation. You've got a lot of interesting things that I want to talk about. So, just starting with, you've built a career bridging healthcare and technology, working originally as a med-surg registered nurse to then founding multiple companies. What initially inspired you to move from clinical practice to solving healthcare staffing challenges and in the tech space?
Sure. It was actually a little bit of a winding road. I loved working at the bedside as a registered nurse and enjoyed patient care. But there was always an entrepreneurial itch in me. And I think it came from my mother's side, who was always a hustler, and she opened several restaurants on her own. So I think that entrepreneurial drive came from her, but the love of tech came from my dad. At a
Mm.
very early age, he bought us computers to mess around with and play and video game consoles. So tech was always part of our lives on the recreational side. I just knew with the timing that I got my nursing degree and the evolution of the internet and what was going on with technology, that there was a way that I could leverage my knowledge in nursing to improve anything medically, nursing wise, patient care. I didn't know what it was yet, but I was just exploring and finally found a way through a staffing agency that I was hired in where I could implement some of my tech ideas into their workflows. And that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, nice. And then you've had some successful exits already. What
Yes.
what what big lessons did you learn from those experiences, and how have they shaped approaching now building Una Health?
Yeah. So big, learned from each exit and growth of each company. I think establishing culture first, right, helps to kind of mold the growth of the company. But certainly after every subsequent exit, you know, the goal for an entrepreneur ultimately in my mind is to build a business and ultimately sell it, right, if that's what you want to do, and that's really been my roadmap is build tech, build a platform, build a company, 3 to 5 years. And remember, my background is nursing, right? So I never really went to business school. I was never a technologist. And so, although I learned a lot on the job, especially through these 3 and 4 companies that I work for and help build, there's also a skill set involved with scaling companies from certain levels, from 5 million to 10 million to 100 million. And I think I've learned what it takes to scale a business to a certain size and then bring in, the real geniuses to come take it to another level. And so what I do when I start new businesses from historically exiting those companies is what did I learn from the exit? And then, of course, in the transition through the exit, you get to stay on board for a little while and you watch the new company, the acquiring company, talk about your business and how they're going to scale it in the next round or in the next level. So you kind of just, you're a sponge, you take that in and you say, I want to use those approaches, those methodologies uh, to help scale my business a little bit more next time because now I know how they do it, right? So yes, I think one of the key takeaways from exiting a business is, I should say, one of the experiences that's challenging is the due diligence process that investors put the founders through, when they're reviewing all your financials and your contracts, is organizing all that data. So, I went into my last 2 ventures automatically starting a data room on our platform, putting all our contracts. So everything is very methodical now. So everything we sign, all our financials goes into this data room. So when it comes time to raise money or to sell the company, it's very easy just to open the data room to organizations or investors interested in what you have.
Mm. Yeah, really interesting. That's an interesting insight. And when you starting and growing a company, having that 3 to 5 year roadmap, to exit, that sounds very methodical. And obviously, every founder's dream is to have that and the 3 to 5 year exit. But surely it doesn't always go to that plan and those time frames. What are
No,
your thoughts on
certainly it
that?
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think everybody would love a 3 to 5 year growth, right? And then you sell it for 10, 20x, in everybody's dream. But certain things happen along the way. Your business pivots, customers change, your market changes. And the perfect example of that is the pandemic market, right? And so I've
Mm,
been in the healthcare staffing market since 1996. First,
mm,
as a clinician, I worked through an agency as an RN at the bedside, working at multiple facilities. But then started working inside as a manager and a recruiter in a staffing company, and really understood operationally how it works from the top down. So I knew building this tech at the time we were building it, and then understanding that the pandemic was real, because we did a soft launch of Una in 2019, and we didn't know
mm.
anything was coming, right? Early 2020, we started to hear things, but we started our sales, our formalized sales approach, and we started to adopt some early clients then. Once we started to get April, May, June in the pandemic, when it started to be really full force, sales were very difficult, just because staffing agencies, which was the market we were focusing on, were not looking at switching tech stacks or technology or workflows. They were really focused on recruiting nurses and placing them with their existing technology. So um, it is very, very challenging, especially with the pandemic, how we would kind of pivot what we were doing. Initially, we were going to be a B2C play. So Una was going to go direct to clinicians and nurses so that they can upload their credentials, their licenses. But I do give credit to my former co-founder, Rich Benvenuto, who said after we piloted the MVP to staffing agencies and we're positioning it as a recruiter tool, Una was going to be a recruiter tool for them. And they were very adamant about owning or wanting that technology for themselves. So we did pivot and went B2B and started selling enterprise direct to staffing agencies. And it was a great move because it helped near term revenue. We really didn't have an idea if we went directly to clinicians when we were going to start monetizing, but certainly when we went directly to the agency market, they would be paying customers.
Yeah, I mean, crazy time to be launching. Unbeknownst to you, you said you sort of tested the rollout 2019. Then the whole pandemic hit, which I don't think you could have been, well, probably, but not. There's not many industries that were more affected than the healthcare.
Yes.
So yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah.
it was unprecedented. In my,
Mm,
again, since being in staffing since 96, I think the lowest recession we've ever experienced was probably 12 to 18 months at the most. And now we're going on almost 4 years of a depressed staffing agency market. And a lot
mm.
of the companies are feeling it. But I think we've been to the lowest of the low, and we are starting to see some metrics that are showing growth back in that segment.
Yeah, interesting. And then, and obviously you've had to have pivots along the way as the market is almost, it is unprecedented. So I mean, how do you even navigate that, because that's just unknown territory?
Yeah, it was unknown for us. We just didn't know how the agencies were going to respond after the dust has settled, so to speak. But because many agencies at the peak of COVID were making tremendous amounts of money, and and I even had colleagues who never entered software wanting to build their own software because they felt they could do it better and they had money to do it. And my response was, don't do it. Software never ends. It's a continual evolution, a continual build, innovation, and it never finishes. It's not, I'm just going to pay this amount, I'm going to have my dream software. It's you could always improve it, right? So yeah, it was one of those things where after the downturn, um, uh, agencies were struggling, and we helped them. We modified pricing to assist with some of our clients who were just having some tough times, and we had clients go out of business as well. So we also had to streamline our workforce. Everybody was very flexible, and we were able to do modified scheduling. So everybody kind of had to pitch in together just to get through that toughest part, um, which was, we don't know when our clients are going to be back on board, where they're actually paying us what they're supposed to be paying us. So I think everybody tried to help each other as much as they can as partners. Some we weren't able to help, but certainly everybody had to make a concerted effort and make some type of scaling back of their workforce, or any type of platforms or solutions that were being used or had to be modified or scaled back as well, just to kind of fall in line with budgets in order to continue business.
Yeah. And then, and so you went through those phases, pivoted, and moved into B2B, focusing
Yes,
on enterprise, and that's where you are now. Is that like where the yeah?
that's correct. Yeah, so we're focusing on the healthcare staffing market and the hospital market. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we focused on healthcare staffing because it's quicker near term revenue. The organizations typically aren't as large as hospital systems, so you can get to the decision maker relatively quickly. Hospitals are a little bit tougher. We do want to approach them, and we have a plan to do that in 2026. But everything in hospital is a decision by committee because it's just so many people involved, and they're making decisions on the system-wide adoption of a platform, right? It's not like going to a hospital and they go, yeah, we like it, we want to buy it. Now everybody's part of a system, HCA, Tenet, Kaiser, Common Spirit. There's so many in the US right now, and it continues to consolidate. It's very difficult to find an independent hospital that's not affiliated with the hospital system in the country now.
Yeah. And you mentioned obviously software development that is never ending. That you're always iterating based on customer feedback and improving and innovating. Do you want to give me the quick sort of the value proposition now as it stands, and how you differentiate in the market?
Absolutely. So our value proposition really is in the quality and the speed that we deliver our content versus our competitors, and also the outcome of the use of our product. And so what I mean by that is our platform was built mobile first. We did that on purpose because we knew talent at this day and age is really driving the market. Historically, when I worked as a nurse recruiter at the staffing company back in the late 90s, I was able to pick up the phone and have the nurse come into the office with all their credentials, and let them take a test while they were there. They were in the office sometimes 2 and 3 hours, but that's how it was done back then. And now, currently, you can't get a nurse's name unless you tell them where they're working, how much they're going to get paid, are there any bonuses, and then they'll give you their name and email address, right? But look at all this data we have to give them before they come on board. And so I really felt that if talent was driving the market, let's make it real easy for them to manage their career, right? So we sometimes called Una a career readiness app, and it was built again for speed and quality, so clinicians can go in and complete testing, checklists, any education, and upload their documents as well to the platform. and make it real easy for them to share with any employer that they need. So the value proposition on the agency side is you're going to get clinicians that are qualified for their position and ready to work, right? And competitors don't have our two platforms that we offer combined. So we typically don't compete with just one company. There's always overlap with two. Excuse me.
That's all right.
So definitely it is about speed and quality. And because agencies are have to be so fast to fill these positions, because if they don't, their competitors fill them, right? So if they have a platform where clinicians can complete a skills checklist in half the time that they do versus competitors, their testing in half the time, and even their educational requirements in half the time, and even the experience is good for them, they're going to keep coming back. And our clients realize that. They see it. They see how quickly the content from their clinicians is coming through and making their clinician ready to work, quicker than their competitors.
Yeah, really interesting. And you've scaled, so you're serving clients across 42 states in the US, with just a pretty small team right now, so
Yeah.
10 employees.
Yeah.
What and obviously operating in the healthcare industry, which is quite complex. It's a complex industry known for that. What principles guide your approach to scaling so leanly?
Well, we have to have a clear vision on what we want to do, right? And then you have to find the right people. People drive everything. I know AI is coming into everybody's market and either assisting with what you're doing foundationally, or sometimes even replacing people depending on what type of job they do. We don't have any positions where an AI bot or tool could actually replace 100% of someone's job for us, but certainly it has helped us automate and scale on the creation of our testing content. Prior to AI coming, it was laborsome to build tests. But the reason that we spent so much time doing it is because our competitors didn't do it the way we did it. So it's truly a quality play there, right? That was the differentiator. But now we can create the same content using AI and just have subject matter experts review the items. And so it cut our test development time by probably 75%, which is incredible. So it's technology, right? That's just one example of how we use AI, and other platforms that we use for, our CRM, to manage our clients, but also the people are key for me. I needed experienced people, self-starters, people who could take ownership, and then also people who weren't afraid to ask me hard questions, right? Because that's how we build. And sometimes their ideas are better than mine, and I accept that fully. I think that's the sign of a good leader, is if you allow people who have better ideas or approaches or processes that are better, encourage them, let them do that. All it does is improve your business. It improves morale, and other employees see that and they want to be part of that, right? So culturally too, it helps.
Yeah. So touching on leadership, so you started, grown, scaled multiple companies, exited multiple companies. Obviously, the leadership side, you've been through quite the journey, and a lot of experience. What are the biggest sort of lessons that you sort of evolve, from that startup to growth and the leadership role that you play? What are some of the biggest lessons that you've got to learn in that journey?
I would say be focused, right, on your mission. Be empathetic to people. Everybody's human, And I think that getting to know your employees is important because establishing the connection with your workers, uh, I think they feel more motivation to do the right thing, to complete jobs on time. But I think my leadership style is really um, connecting with people, understanding our vision, and then always having a mind to what's coming in the future, right? And so AI has been one of those things that everybody talks about, and I really don't want to make this about AI, but it it does really some amazing things, and I encourage my employees to leverage it as well in any of their job duties if it helps them, and they have. So we have, I've seen tremendous throughput and progress improve with the implementation of some of our AI tools. So just doing a lot of those things. We have weekly huddles 3 times a week, actually, just to get on the same page, making sure everybody's focused on their weekly projects. But also, I start Monday off with, "How was your weekend? Did you do anything fun? Anything you want to share?" And so it creates a little camaraderie as well. A cohesiveness is important. We're all on the same page. And then on Friday is, how did your week go? Did you accomplish everything you needed to? And do you have any cool plans for the weekend? So it really is about that engagement with employees and motivating them. And the little things count. Birthdays count. Saying happy birthday, mentioning it to the employees, sending a little gift. All of that really just creates, I think, a positive mindset for employees, and I let them know that if they have any issues, whatever they are, please feel free to. It's an open door. You can email me, call me, and I find that my employees work much better when all of those things are met.
Yeah, awesome. I really like that. As the leader of the company, what do you spend your? Because obviously you're wearing so many different hats. So and you're leading these meetings and keeping that culture going,
Yes.
but doing so many other different things as well. What are you spending your time on? What's the split of your time? How does kind of an average week look, or do you even have a routined average week?
My weeks are crazy, and you're right. I wear multiple hats. It's meeting with the finance people, legal on contracts that have to be debated, jumping into new client calls for some questions that they may have. Also involved in tech discussions. Sometimes it's easier to translate the tech requirements more easily or lay to people on the other side of the phone who aren't that familiar. So we do have many clients who are not as tech savvy, and so I do have to kind of translate what we do. If we're using an API. So if I mention an API is a technology bridge that connects our platform to another platform where you can use our platform within the other platform because we give you this technology bridge, right? Or API. And so people are like, "Oh, what is an API? How does it work?" And so we kind of walk them through it. And so I'm on calls like that. But certainly, employee calls, if there's any challenges, I pop into our daily tech stand-up calls that happen every morning at 9 a.m. They don't know when I'm coming, but I'll just pop in whenever just to see what's going on, make sure everything's going. It's a nice. Sometimes I feel like when I pop in, I just see everybody, sit up a little bit straighter and do that type of stuff. But it's fun. But I like to include myself in those just to get an idea of how the progress of how our tech platform is coming along.
Yeah, nice. Very cool. What's your, when it comes to growth, what's your biggest challenge, bottleneck right now? What's not working at the level that it could or should?
Yeah, I think that in full transparency, uh, I always felt like I could do better at sales, like the sales function in our business. I've always had to tap on people, of course, with experience to go in and tackle the market with us. And I think I've been learning after the last 15 plus years uh, how to do a better job of doing that, but also adopting a real well-oiled sales machine. I think it's important for every company. Historically, we've lost deals, and not specifically Una, but with my previous businesses, um, we lost deals to competitors just because they had a better sales machine, not necessarily a better product. So they maybe it was their intro email, or maybe they had a better, bigger telemarketing team. I don't know. But I just know that for specific markets, you have to have a really good sales approach, a good sales engine, especially if you have a good product. And that is something that I continually work on.
Yeah, and I mean, selling into I've only heard this, not experientially, but selling into the healthcare industry is particularly difficult. There's very long sales cycles, and do you find that you're challenging like the status quo, as in people not wanting change, and is that sort of a a challenge in
That
the sales
happens.
process?
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, we sometimes go into some organizations and we're selling to the person who makes the decision, but they also made the decision on the last platform that they're using, which happens to be a competitor of ours. So
Mm,
they don't want to say yes to something that they said yes to before. And we've had that rub a few times when we went into sales, and we'd had to
mm,
sometimes jump over to get it done. But that's tough. Um, yeah, I think it's important that whoever you're selling to, the decision maker, um, understands what you do, right?
mm,
And how it differentiates and can improve your current situation.
mm,
We typically go in with, because we're a competency testing platform, the exams, they're job knowledge exams. So if an emergency room nurse is going to be hired at a hospital or a staffing agency, that organization that uses Una will administer the emergency room competency exam for registered nurses. And it's not an easy exam to pass, but we didn't make it easy for everyone to pass. We made it challenging so that the hiring managers could determine who the high performers are versus the non-high performers. And we know that high performers typically at organizations, they excel, right? They stay longer, they work harder, they happen to blend in with the culture more easily. So all these things can be kind of pulled out of people who do well on our exams. And unfortunately, there's a lot of organizations out there that they just want to check the box. We have a competency testing platform that we use. If it's not us, it's one of our competitors. Um, we keep a pretty close eye on our competitors and see what they're doing, how they build, and if they're innovating at all. But we certainly know that the content that we build is superior in quality. We just see it all the time. And so even people out on the market, agencies, hospitals who are using, we call it budget friendly competency testing, it's specifically that they're doing it because they're on a budget.
mm,
We're not the cheapest guy on the block, but it's for a reason. Our solution works. It yields really good clinicians for you to have and work in your organization. And so we try to keep that position.
yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned sales or hasn't been, particularly your best strength in growing the company or growing companies, but you've got deep understanding in your industry, which is obviously a big advantage, so that,
Absolutely.
yeah, and the ability to connect with, the people, the decision makers that you need to connect with, and it gives you sort of instant authority as soon as they
Yes,
understand that, you've got that depth and background.
you
Um,
hit it. You hit it right on the head, James. I think that that might be. I don't know if that what causes my not my lack of motivation to build a really cool sales team, but I've been, and my partner Leslie and the people on our team have been in the industry so long. We know the key people, so we go. That's our sales approach. Is we email, and then sometimes they'll bump us down and they'll say, I don't even make decisions on this. You got to talk to the VP of compliance, right? But at least it gets us there a little bit quicker, and we can have these conversations sooner than knocking on the door through the gatekeeper at every phone call or every organization we approach.
Yeah. So I can imagine that's quite a conundrum that you're probably facing there when it comes to, okay, how do I hire for that, without going directly for just trying to recruit for people that, have a similar experience background to you. How do we hire salespeople and do that right, scale the sales team without it diluting that effectiveness of your depth of understanding of the industry. Yeah. Do you, in your marketing and sales, do you market your sort of founder story and your expertise and background, and the same with your other leaders on your team?
Yeah, we try to. We typically don't lead with that, but sometimes our competitor would be Relias, which was the company that acquired my last testing company. And so sometimes we'll get on calls and I don't expect people to recognize me at all. I'm a software CEO in the healthcare staffing industry, so I'm not typically famous, but people in the market know me. However, there's a new generation of recruiters and credentialists that are coming in who are using Relias now, because Relias, before I sold to them, Prophecy was the market dominating competency testing platform. We had probably about 65% market penetration in healthcare staffing. So when we get on these calls now, the question is, well, are your tests as good as the one on Relias? I go, you mean the Prophecy testing? And they go, yeah. Do you guys build them the same way? I go, yeah, pretty similar. We build them the same way. And they're like, well, we have a lot of history. There's a lot of trust behind the content. How do you guys compete? And then I'll tell my story. And then that's when you see people go, oh, okay. Got it. So that helps. I don't like to say it up front, but if we need to, I'll share that story, and that helps. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's cool. That makes a lot of sense. What's the vision, and what's the goal for growth over the next 12 months or so?
Yeah, so next 12 months, we want to. Last year we grew 130%. So this year the market was a little tougher this year. So I think we're projecting 90 to 100% growth rate this year. With the target on 2 large nationals. That's really our focus. And so once we start to get these bigger clients on board, everybody else starts to fall in line as well. So we have a relatively large client right now. They happen to be the number 2 in the industry. And we've been working with them for almost 2 years. And we want to continue to build on the bigger size agencies. So those are a little bit tougher to crack, because sometimes they have their own custom platforms that they use, and they're not integrated into anything. They'll be using a competitor as a standalone. And I think that's one of the advantages that Una has, is we have an out-of-the-box API toolkit, right, that says, hey, if you guys really want to streamline your onboarding process and make it efficient, plug us in. So when your candidates apply, once you know what their specialty is, deploy a checklist from Una right there, boom. And when they get to another part of the application or complete it, deploy the competency exam. And you can do all of that within your platform, and it can be automated, right? So that is what if you talk to everybody in healthcare staffing, and I'm sure other markets, automation is something people are currently using. But healthcare has always been slow to technology. Ever since I started working as a nurse, it's almost embarrassing to say, but I remember in 2000, when I worked as a nurse, we were faxing doctor's orders to the pharmacy department that was one floor beneath us. But that's how they did things. We just started having computers in there. But that's what healthcare staffing companies are going through as well. Is there's some that are still working off of Excel spreadsheets for
Mm.
credential management, and it's difficult if you don't have a trusted advisor or someone who knows about tech. A lot of these startups are lost. They don't know where to go, who to go to, what's the best solution, these types of things. So yeah, we just tried to be as clear as possible and say that we want to make your jobs a lot easier. Una could make your onboarding very efficient. We can close that onboarding time. We also use this term hello to hire, right? From hello to hire, we can shrink that time just by using Una on the credentialing side specifically and testing by
Mm.
50%. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, faxing downstairs
It
to
was
give them updates.
there were times when there was like an emergency or a code on the floor, and
Mm.
we needed a specific medication to give to the patient. And I just remember my nurse manager looking at me going, "Don't fax it, run it down." She's like, "Don't fax it, run it down." So I did. I ran it down.
Yeah, funny. What would you say is going to be, the biggest obstacles that are going to get in the way of that growth trajectory?
So these are the things that keep me up at night. Is Yeah, what could happen that could really impact the business negatively? Certainly, one of the things is market change, right? If we don't see a significant market change within the next 12 months, that could be a challenge to our business, because we wouldn't be able to hit our revenue goals. Revenue goals are based on client adoption, right? And if a market down, clients aren't going to adopt new technology. Um, but certainly, it's the market, it's technology. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? Progression, I should say, in our platform itself. So we have internal benchmarks for our technology roadmap that we need to meet, right? Where we launch new features that we could charge for, of course, to our client base to build our incremental revenue. And so I think internally, being able to meet those internal benchmarks for tech progress is important. Um, so if yeah, if we don't do that, then again we run into some issues. But I think competitors have always been that thing, the obstacle. Like I don't know if we've really had any competitors that, I don't want to say out innovated, but released features that we didn't have. But certainly they come close. So I'm always very cognizant of what at what stage is their product at, innovation wise, and how can we do something different. And then I think we're releasing in a couple of weeks, I think it's going to be a really important feature to the market, and it's called Una Air. It's a remediation tool, so that if a nurse fails the test, what happens now is if they fail a test, the agency can just reassign a test and say, do it, take it over and see if you do better. Sometimes that works, but sometimes if they didn't really study up or understand what they got wrong, they may fail again, right? So our goal is really to get these nurses to understand what they got wrong on the test. So when they retake it, they improve their score, they pass, and now they're ready to take an assignment. And what we've done was use AI to build what we call content snacks, or small educational summaries for each question that we ask. So if we asked you a question on blood pressure, what's a normal blood pressure in an infant? And then we'll give you options. And if you answer the wrong one, now at the end of the test, if you fail the exam and that blood pressure question was one that you got wrong, we already have education built behind it. It pushes you into the UNA remediation platform, and it lets the clinician read up on infant blood pressure and how it works. And once they understand that, they accept it, and they do that with every question they get wrong. And at the very end, they just click retest, and it pushes them into a retest. And our alpha studies show that of the 98 nurses that failed the exam the first time, 95 passed the second time around using our remediation. So we feel really good about that.
Yeah. There's some really good metrics for just proof and case studies to. Yeah. Amazing. What are you most excited about when it comes to the growth and the vision and everything you've got going on?
Gosh, there's so many things. Ultimately, UNA wants to be that the central cog of the healthcare staffing industry for all clinicians and candidates to come to. The idea is there's this term that was thrown around a couple of years ago, the future of work, right? And so the future of work, we feel for healthcare is creating this ecosystem where clinicians come to one place, they update their work credentials, and if they do it once in UNA through our API, we connect to the different HRIS systems, ATS systems. So if that clinician lives in an ATS over here from another staffing agency, when they upload their nursing license in UNA, we'll go, oh, this nurse also lives here and we're connected. So we're going to send an updated license here, right? And it starts updating credentials in other platforms very easily. So not just that, but test scores as well. So the idea is UNA's acronym originally was Universal Nursing Application. We wanted it to be the last application a nurse or a healthcare professional would ever have to fill out. And that's really our mission. We want it to be the place where all the clinicians hang out and manage their careers. And think in the future, we're going to populate UNA with job opportunities that are specific to their clinical area or expertise. So if you're an ER nurse, I'm not just going to flood your feed with operating room jobs, ICU jobs. It's going to be specific to you. You'll get to see it. And on top, if you like the job, you can just hit apply with UNA and all your information would go.
Amazing. That sounds really cool. Thanks so much for coming on, Ron. I really appreciate this conversation and sharing your insights. Where can people find out more about you online?
Absolutely. You can find us online at unahealth.com. I always say UNA rhymes with tuna because some people say UNA Health, which is okay. But it was really UNA is how we pronounce it. So it's unahealth.com. I'm on LinkedIn under Gonzo Nurse. So it's kind of like a play off my last name, Gonzalez, but it's Gonzo Nurse, Gonzo Nurse on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And I'll put those links in the description below as well when this gets published. So thanks so much again for coming on. Really appreciate this.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, likewise. And I'll be watching the growth of UNA Health with great interest.
Thank you very much, James. Appreciate that.
Thank you.